So Berserk has some of the most shocking, dark and disgusting material that I have ever experienced in fiction. There isn't any other that comes close to the level of depravity that is featured in Kentaro Miura's work in my experience. And it is known that there are many of these moments in the series. So I thought it would be a fun idea to rank every single moment that I can think of that can be labelled as disturbing. I have created a tier list and these are the different ranks. The bottom tier is titled Isn't Too Bad for Berserk. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. These are the least disturbing moments, but even this tier will still have some craziness in it, as I made it clear that it's within the context of Berserk that these moments aren't as bad as others. The tier up from that is simply titled That's Awful. These are moments that are, well, awful. More messed up than the ones featured in the tier below, but still don't reach the level as the tier above. That's titled WTF. There are many moments in Berserk where these words pop into your head. They catch you off guard and shock you. The next one is I Wish I Hadn't Seen This, and it speaks for itself. These are times when you're reading Berserk and it stops you in your tracks and you kind of pull this face. The extremely vile tier is where a lot of the darkest of the dark moments of Berserk will go. The ones that may push you to take a break from reading and sit and think about it. But the final tier, it doesn't get worse than this, is the peak of all this awfulness. These are moments that truly affect you. Ones that you cannot wrap your mind around for how terrible they are. Once I have completed the tier list, I will do the typical countdown list to streamline it more. I have to mention that this is all my personal opinion. This is not meant to be objective. If you disagree with my ranking, let me know and feel free to make your own ranking, as I will leave the tier list template down in the description below.
Let's go!
Page 1 Demon. Let's kick it off with the first panel that kicked off the whole series. Now this one is interesting, as I think Miura made the deliberate choice to make this the first panel for shock value. People have a lot of problems with this being the first panel, as it can easily turn people away from reading the series, and it is kinda overly edgy for the sake of it. But in my mind, I think it effectively conveys what the series is about. Demons, an edgy protagonist, and grotesque material that will push the limits. But really, unless you are sensitive to dark imagery, this one isn't too bad. So that's why Guts clapping demon cheeks is gonna go into the bottom tier. The Birth of Fantasia. Think of all the cool, scary, fantastical creatures you've read in stories, seen in movies, TV and video games. Imagine an event happened in which they became a reality in our world. Well, that is basically what Fantasia is. Humans are now under severe threat. Thousands upon thousands of people have perished, devoured upon these hellish beings entering the real world. The thought of that alone is terrifying, and what makes it worse is that this event is something Griffith uses to further his rise in being the saviour of the world, which is just as equally disgusting to me. These two ideas make this moment go into the that's awful category. The Bowels of the Holy Ground. Almost every panel in the Conviction arc could be on this list, as that whole arc features some of the worst things seen in the series. The Bowels of the Holy Ground is especially vile. You have a bunch of crazies drugged up having a, dirty party, which, isn't for me, but I guess there'd be people that's into that. I mean, you gotta remember this is in a medieval-like setting, so it kind of feels like you're on a speed run to get a disease. But it gets considerably worse when you realise that these people are cooking and eating humans. But they don't discriminate, as even babies are on the menu. They try to sacrifice Nina to their alleged witch, Casca. I am also going to include the Great Goat in this, when he, along with his followers, turn into demonic beings that are really frightening. And don't even get me talking about his snake and what he tried to do to Casca. The scenes in this section of the story are very disgusting, and Miura definitely didn't shy away from going into great detail with his art, showing the depravity that goes on in the Bowels of the Holy Ground. This easily deserves to go into the extremely vile tier. The Incarnation Ceremony. This is one of the events in Berserk that reaches its most chaotic and crazy aspects. The other two, of course, are the Eclipse and the battle between Ganishka and Griffith. Here, these weird demonic blobs that are hard to describe are causing havoc, destroying the Tower of Conviction, crushing people. The demonic spirits possess people and they start attacking and eating each other. One moment in particular that stands out as disturbing is the moment when a little kid is with their parents and they get possessed and start eating their kid. Truly, truly terrible. Add to the fact that Mozgus thinks himself to be gifted by God to help the people, and by helping he means ordering Casca to be burned at the stake. This illustrates how corrupted the human mind can become when the fear of death is looming over one's head. Also, the fact that I can't quite understand the weird demonic blobs adds to the creepiness factor. But the child's gruesome death is by far the worst thing here. This deserves to go into the I wish I hadn't seen this tier. Schierke on top of Guts. This is just plain weird, man. Like, what's the purpose of this? This is the appropriate reaction to witnessing this panel.
Hey yo, what the f***?
It's not necessarily strange within the context of Berserk, more of why Miura decided to depict a definitely not adult person like this. She's a child for God's sake, and I don't think there's any strong justification for why this needed to be in the story. This just throws me off, and I think a very fair reaction to this is, what the fuck? Wyald Chapters. It's everyone's favourite disgusting edgelord, Wyald. You can watch my video on Wyald for a more in-depth analysis of his character and his impact on the plot, but there isn't a more ferocious, violent, vile villain in the story than Wyald. His introduction is unsettling enough, but when he chooses to violate a young girl and burn a bunch of kids with his buddies, that's when you truly comprehend the nature of his character. Then to put the woman on pikes like banners is an unnerving sight. It's because of his ability to overpower a lot of people that makes it scary he can act on his urges. And yeah, the Casca part almost makes me sick to my stomach. I hate that moment a lot. I don't find it too necessary to be included, but it is, and it's one of the most vile moments in Berserk. It almost reaches the top tier, but I think ultimately it suits the extremely vile tier. Casca's past. This occurs when Casca is speaking of her past to Guts, which marks the first time the two get personal with each other. Her past involves what it was like in her early days in the Band of the Hawk with Griffith, but what I'm going to focus on is her experience before joining the Band of the Hawk. She came from a poor town, and this supposed good nobleman wanted to bring Casca with him to become a castle maid. Her family were obviously poor, and they felt like they were doing a good thing by sending her away. But of course, why would a nobleman ever take an interest in a poor village girl? And yeah, he's just another depraved dude in the world of Berserk. She was only 12, I believe, and the fact that her family was unable to protect her is an even more saddening aspect. The only thing that stops this from going to a worse level is that the nobleman isn't able to follow through with what he hoped to do, as she is saved by Griffith. Yes, this moment is horrible, I'm not denying that, but it could have gotten much worse had Griffith not shown up. Man, what a good guy Griffith is, helping a young girl out. That's awful tier. 2016-2017 anime. To be absolutely clear, I haven't actually watched this anime, but I've seen clips and images and, you know what, that's enough. The man made Behelit. This is how Ganishka creates his army of Daka and later turns into his Shiva form. It's a disgusting mass of apostles sewn together, with these weird sacks from above that feed these apostles. But the worst part is that copious amounts of pregnant women are lowered into a sack with a weird fluid, and because of this it makes their babies corrupted by evil. They burst out of their mother, killing them gruesomely. And that is how a Daka is born. And because of the amount of Daka that we see, just think of the many innocent women who are subjected to this. Also, all these women have to be pregnant in order for this to work. So that just makes you think, how do these women get pregnant in the first place? The mystery surrounding this man-made Behelit is eerie, and the methods of creating Ganishka's army are nothing short of cruel. I wish I hadn't seen this tier. Ganishka's Shiva form. Okay, just imagine being in this world and seeing this sight. It's something that is just beyond comprehension to the human experience. I really love the panels Miura did to show the perspective of the people down below. I think the contrast between this perspective and Ganishka's is what makes it horrifying to me, because all these people on the ground have families, perhaps have loved ones with children, they have desires, they are individuals. But in Ganishka's perspective, he can't understand that. To him, they just look like ants, and when he steps on them, they become blooming flowers to him. It's almost like a video game to him. You know, in GTA when you run people over with your car and go on a 5-star police chase. Except for Ganishka, this is real life. What's also a frightening revelation is that no person should hold this much power, and Ganishka starts to struggle with that, starting to struggle with his identity. You also have these weird Ganishka spawns below that add to his terror. I think if you truly put yourself in this scenario, it would be an event that would just break your mind. This deserves to go into the WTF tier. Ganishka's backstory. Carrying on with Ganishka here, and his backstory is one of the more messed up and sad ones among villains in this story. The worst part of the story is how his mother poisons him at a young age. Like, come on, he is your child, and he is just that. A child. There is no need to do that at all. In retaliation, Ganishka kills his own brother, which causes the mother to sign off. So yeah, that's pretty brutal. Then add on the cycle of him betraying his father to eventually get betrayed by his own son in the same way, and you've got a very dark backstory. I think it's good that this backstory doesn't overstay its welcome. It's relatively short, but by doing so, I feel like it's more difficult to understand the gravity of his backstory versus if it was more stretched out and lingered on things more. So I think this one would fit nicely with the that's awful space. Also, if you want a more in-depth analysis of Ganishka, go watch my video on him. Donovan. For some reason, I think Donovan is kind of a meme in some spaces of the fandom, and I'm like, why? I think especially with what he did, there isn't any room for jokes, but that's just me, I guess. This is an extremely sad moment for Guts, because it's part of his trauma that he carries with him for his whole life, and the Wounds chapters illustrate this well. Not only is the image very visceral and portrays the feeling of being helpless very well, I think one of the saddest parts is that his father betrayed him, and he doesn't know why. When Donovan tells him that Gambino sold him out, the next day Gambino acts like nothing happened, which Guts misinterprets as him not knowing what happened. Despite what happened to him, Guts is more at peace knowing that his father didn't sell him out. Oh, but you can throw that all away when Gambino literally tells Guts that Donovan paid him so he could do it. Screw you, Gambino. This is one of the worst experiences Guts has had, and for us, the audience, this was hard to read through. I wish I hadn't seen this tear. Theresia. She had a messed up life. I am once again going to do another shameless plug for one of my other videos where I go into more depth on the count. But her mother decided to have a dirty heretic party that caused the father to kill everyone except her. He then became an apostle, sacrificing her mother, and for years she's left confined in her bed chambers. When she is talking to Puck, you hear how she often dreams of getting out of her room. Her life is only made worse when she realizes that her father is literally a monster. She then learns about her family's truth, watches her father get taken into the abyss. She wants to self-delete where Guts encourages her to do so. This turns her into a similar individual to Guts, where she looks to him as the reason for everything awful happening in her life. God knows what happened to Theresia, but she's just a kid who experienced things that no one should, going so far as to contemplate ending it all, which no one should think about doing, never mind a child. Her life is crazy and that deserves the WTF tier. The Burning Children. The Lost Children chapters have some of the darkest material in the whole of Berserk. These Hornet Fairy Apostles are actually all children, and there is a spine-chilling image after Guts kills a bunch of them by setting ablaze to a barn. The corpses are just very young children. If that wasn't bad enough, the spirits of these follow Guts to his campfire. Guts has to defend himself against them, but they are crying, asking for their mothers, the very essence of a child, which is unsettling. This is hard on Guts especially, but he has no choice but to get rid of these spirits. I wish I hadn't seen this tier. Adult Attack. Pseudo-apostle bug-like creatures that were created from children, acting like adults by playing war, by gleefully killing each other. And something that I do not know how I missed in my video about Rosine, these creatures, who are children mind you, start R-ing each other. What the fuck? Yes, they start doing actions that rhymes with grape. But because they use their stinger to do this, it just makes the other bleed profusely, killing them. I am an idiot that I missed this in my video. I deserve some hate for that. Also, Rosine takes children from their homes, from their families, and turns them into these creatures against their will, which just adds another layer of messed up. I was going to put this in the extremely vile tier until I came across that one thing that I overlooked. I am confident that this is one of the worst things that has happened in Berserk. It doesn't get worse than this tier. Rosine and Jail backstory. I'm putting these two together because they are both very similar to one another. And the Rosine and Jill story demonstrates how two people can react differently to trauma. Both have an abusive father. Jill's father does disgusting shit to her, like ugh. Rosine experienced so much abuse that she wanted to go to the Misty Valley and become an elf. When her father found her, he began berating her, then hitting her, soon after giving the same treatment to the mother. This causes Rosine to feel extremely low. Activating the Behelit, she sacrifices her parents. Rosine becomes a monster because of what she suffered. In a world full of monsters, Berserk shows how humans are the actual monsters. WTF tier. Griffith attempting to do something to Casca. Ah yeah, a moment when you first see it, you're probably confused and weirded out. But once the eclipse happens and you can recontextualize Griffith's character, what Griffith is trying to do here is vile. I hate this dude so much, because what he is attempting to do here is what he eventually does in the eclipse. To me, this is him trying to punish Casca in a way, for now being attached to Guts equally or more than him. He resents the fact that the two are happy, while he is suffering. But he doesn't realize that he caused this for himself. As the narcissist that he is, he obviously thinks it's others who caused him to be like this. So yeah, re-experiencing this moment just fills you with so much rage. Because I know what this sicko is trying to do. But regardless, I would say it's tamer than a lot of other ones I have listed so far. So I think it would probably go in the that's awful tier. The Snake Lord's Appetite. So the first apostle in Berserk is often neglected for lacking depth, and I agree. But it is a decent introduction into what type of monsters exist in the world of Berserk. When Guts enters Corker trying to find the Snake Baron, he sees a wagon that has women and children inside, and they don't look particularly happy, and it is heading towards the castle. We then come to learn that the lord of the castle orders these women and children to be sent to him so he can feast upon them. His mayor realizes this as the Snake Lord throws a human ear at him. I would put this in the lowest tier, but the fact that we saw the women and children getting taken to the castle, I just can't get that out of my head that they have been sent there to become a meal for an apostle. That's awful tier. Vargas. He is a character who, upon seeing his appearance, raises many questions. He was the castle's physician under the Count. He realized that his employer was becoming more violent and rash, so he decided to flee the castle with his wife and children. However, the Count caught him. And the brutal part is that he was forced to watch as the Count Apostle dismembered and devoured his wife and children. Then the Count cut pieces of Vargas off, eating them too. This would make any man dedicate their life to revenge, but unfortunately the world is cruel and Vargas is executed by the Count. This would be such a disturbing thing to experience, and it was pretty shocking reading this for the first time. WTF tier. Casca's Dreamscape. This section of the manga is some of the most fascinating material in the whole story. There's a lot of strong imagery here, and mostly the terrible things we see are things that we have already experienced. And it's more used for Schierke and Farnese to see the past of Casca, and for the audience to reflect on the long journey so far. But I think it's interesting that the closer Farnese and Schierke get to curing Casca's mind, the more dark and hostile a Dreamscape gets, as we see these creatures that resemble a man's member, illustrating the charm that Casca holds with the Eclipse. Eventually, we see that it is the dark hawk shape that symbolizes Griffith is the last thing in the way. Where once Griffith was the thing Casca worshipped, it is now the thing she fears the most. I think more than anything, seeing inside the mind of Casca is sad. The Eclipse broke her mind, and this shows how the big shadow that is Griffith is responsible for that. Apart from the creepy phallic-like monsters that show Casca's trauma with the Eclipse, this moment isn't too bad in comparison to others. The Eclipse. I mean, do I really have to say much with this one? You already know where it's going to go. I don't think many moments in fiction are viewed the same way as the Eclipse. It is known to be the worst of the worst, perhaps the biggest betrayal I have ever experienced. It doesn't get darker than this. Guts' friends all get eaten by demons. His best friend turns into one of the God Hand and proceeds to violate Casca, the woman he loves, right in front of him, as he is forced to cut off his arm, held down with his eye gouged out. This also broke Casca's mind, which turned her into a potato for the majority of the series. There is nothing quite like the Eclipse. Don't be stupid. It's going to the top. The Tower of Conviction Torture. This is where you see the worst of the worst medieval torture methods on display. Miura goes into extensive detail on these panels. What perhaps makes this worse is the fact that some of these people are subjected to this because, they have different views on God. Yes, that's right. Also, take into consideration how Mozgus's torturers use the wheel a lot to kill these people, and it's one of the reasons why I think Mozgus is the most horrifying villain in the series. Even the sadistic Farnese is unable to keep her gaze from moving when seeing this torture chamber. This should sit in the wish I hadn't seen this tier. Gennon. A high-ranking noble in Tudor, all of his servants were young boys. He would go to villages to seek them out and employ them as his servants, because yes, he had a thing for younger boys. In Casca's flashback, we see Griffith take advantage of this by giving his body to Gennon in exchange for men and resources to help Griffith's dream. This is where that meme comes from. Gennon has a very obsessive nature towards Griffith. As we see in the Battle of Doldry, he puts himself at risk by going onto the battlefield and commands Griffith to be spared, as he believed they shared a special connection. But obviously, Griffith is only playing the game. Gennon is a disgusting person. We only really see the fact that he is surrounded by young boys all the time, hinting at what's really going on. He isn't too dissimilar to a lot of rich people in our world. That's awful tier. Fangs of Ego. Oh boy. This moment is one that just shocks you and makes my head shake in disappointment. This happens after Guts has established in his mind that he should never again abandon Casca, and instead dedicate his time to protecting her. But then this happens. This shows the flaws of Guts. He does something we would never thought he would have done. It kinda illustrates that he could become just like Griffith if he's not careful. Also, the twisted thing with this is that Casca and Guts are supposed to be a couple, and Guts is taking advantage of her when she is in her comatose state. The Beast of Darkness tries to convince him to have his way with her and then kill her to relieve himself of the burden. The imagery is very disturbing here, and it feels like Casca for like 80% of this story is just subjected to men taking advantage of her. This moment is a shocker, and I remember reading this and thinking, what the horse. I remember seeing this cursed image before reading Berserk, and I was like, how bad could it really be? Well, it's only as bad as a horse becoming possessed by demons, becoming overly muscular with a big banana, attempting to do some heinous shit to a bound bear Farnese. Animal, young girl, grape. What a wonderful combination. Oh, and don't forget about what happens next when Farnese is possessed by a demon and straddles Guts' Dragon Slayer, giving herself a haircut. Yeah, this is up there for some of the craziest stuff in Berserk, man. It is intensely cringeworthy. How does your mind conjure this up, Miura? Extremely vile tier. Rickert sees apostles for the first time. This moment is especially eerie. Rickert sees Rosine, who he thinks is an innocent elf, but is actually an apostle. When he returns to camp, everyone is gone, and in the shadows are many apostles that are feasting upon his fellow comrades. The Band of the Hawk on the battlefield feel powerful. They are always winning. But here, Rickert feels powerless. There is nothing he can do here. It gives me a similar vibe to the Peter Jackson King Kong film with those disgusting bug things. You feel like merely food to these creatures, nothing more. That's awful tier. Adonis' death. Chronologically, this is the first time Guts does something that is just plainly wrong, no matter which way you look at it. Julius, fine, he tried to kill Griffith and he's a cruel person, but his son Adonis is innocent. An element that adds to this is the fact that Guts saw his younger self in Adonis in the previous scene. You see the immediate regret on Guts' face as he realizes he just killed a kid. This makes Guts distraught for the rest of the night. And after hearing that he isn't a friend to Griffith despite what he's just done, this is what inspires him to reconsider his life's position. Adonis didn't deserve this. The Troll Den. These goddamn trolls are up there with Wyald as being some of the most horrific creatures in Berserk. When Farnese and Casca are inside Eclipse, they come across a bunch of trolls banging women. There are also women being killed after they have fulfilled their purpose, but the worst part is when one woman pleads for help from Casca and Farnese, but her body becomes erratic and she starts screaming out. As her body explodes, you see weird demon shit coming out. I imagine Farnese and Casca, being women, are especially frightened of what could happen to them if they don't escape. I'll also mention the moment before this in the town where the troll takes advantage of another woman. Yeah, this is some of the most vile content in Berserk. My only problem with it is how the women are depicted in this scene. But that's besides the point. Extremely vile tier. Slan and Guts. This happens shortly after the troll stuff. Slan appears after Guts had wiped out the trolls. Her appearance is more gross here than the one in the Eclipse. Her body forms from what looks to be intestines, and the overall image just looks more disgusting. But I bet that still doesn't bother some of you degenerates watching this. Am I right? She holds Guts close, being seductive, encouraging him to be violent. She then begins torturing Guts. It takes a weird step when Slan tells Guts to do, that. When Guts fights back, she finds it arousing, showing her sadistic nature. I think what makes this unnerving is how much she's into this, and her dialogue is nuts. But there is one line that I find kind of funny, and it's "take that big thick thing." I'm kind of unsure where to put this, but I think the WTF tier may be a good place to put it. Griffith sleeping with Charlotte. This one was kind of shocking the first time you experienced it. My first introduction to Berserk was the 97 anime, and the episode where this takes place is when you see the true cracks of Griffith's character. And I remember when he started making a move on the princess, I was like, no Griffith, don't do this, man. The 97 anime portrays it more like it's unwanted by Charlotte, whereas the movies and the manga portray it as her being more okay with it. But by no means does that mean it's right, because there is a clear power dynamic between the two, and Charlotte is clearly into Griffith. But she is young and naive, and Griffith is taking advantage of that. And he is only using Charlotte as a way to take back the control he felt that was lost when Guts left. So it's pretty foul from Griffith. This moment is more shocking than anything else, and it starts the true downfall of the Hawk. WTF tier. Serpico's mother. He was forced to burn his mother as he was part of the Holy Iron Chain Knights, and his mother was deemed a sinner, and by association, that would make Serpico guilty, had he not burned her. But it's Farnese that makes him do this. Yeah, this is messed up that Farnese made him do that, but in a way, I think it's her way of trying to spare Serpico from also getting burnt at the stake. I feel sorry for Serpico in this scene. This whole scenario is truly awful. Griffith's torture. This happens as a result of Griffith committing treason against the King of Midland. After being whipped ferociously by the king, he is forced to be in a dingy, dark, isolating cell located at the bottom of the Rebirth Tower, with a torturer who excels at his job, who has a twisted mind as he takes pleasure in torturing the Hawk. He even comments that they shared an intimate relationship, which is truly disturbing. Griffith's tendons were cut, so much muscle was removed that you could see the bones beneath. His face was likely mutilated based off the reaction from Guts and the Band of the Hawk seeing him for the first time in this condition. And I think it was a brilliant decision not to show the face of Griffith and just give us the reactions of the characters, because that encourages us to use our imagination on what the image looks like. His tongue was also cut out, and he was forced to wear a helmet that resembled the hawk-like one he used on the battlefield, as a sort of mockery. Because we only see the end result of the torture, it allows us to fill in the gaps of what probably happened. And those gaps are very likely terrible. The torturer may have essayed him, as he did have a thing for Griffith. He could have been castrated. Who knows? But a very haunting image is the one of Griffith alone in a pitch black cell, his weak body unable to move, just in constant pain. There is no rest. And this went on for a whole year. The first time experiencing this, it is immensely shocking, as at the time, Griffith was our guy, and we felt sorry for him that he went through this. But upon rereading, he deserves this. Regardless, Griffith's torture is brutal, and I think it deserves to go into the I wish I hadn't seen this tier. Charlotte and the King. It may come as no surprise to some of you that this is my personal most disturbing moment in the whole of Berserk. My first video on Berserk is all about this, and I recommend that you watch that for my exact feelings and thoughts on the scene. Every single moment I have ranked before this has not affected me as much as this one. I can generally sit through a lot of dark material without it taking a great effect on me. Some may say I'm desensitized a bit, but this one is different, man. This is one of those rare cases that actually shook me to my core, because it comes out of left field, and the fact that I watched the 97 anime before this and thought the king was a good guy. It also makes me feel deeply sorry for Charlotte. She is one of the few in Berserk who is a true victim. There is no enjoyment to be found in this scene. All it did was kinda scar me. Again, if you want to see a more in-depth analysis on this, check out my video on it. Of course, this goes to the very top of my list. Alright, we're done. That's all the moments I can think of. Now let's do a quick top to bottom list. Number 33, Page 1 Demon. Number 32, Casca's Dreamscape. Number 31, Gennon. Number 30, Rickert sees the apostles for the first time. Number 29, The Snake Lord's Appetite. Number 28, Casca's Past. Number 27, Ganishka's Backstory. Number 26, Griffith trying to do something to Casca because of the added context. Number 25, Birth of Fantasia. Number 24, Serpico burning his own mother. Number 23, Schierke being on top of Guts. This one was a weird one to rank, so you can have problems with my ranking on this one. Number 22, Adonis' death. Number 21, Slan Guts. Number 20, Vargas' life. Number 19, Ganishka's Shiva form. Number 18, Griffith sleeping with Charlotte. Number 17, Theresia's life. Number 16, Rosine and Jail's backstory. Number 15, Fangs of Ego. Number 14, The Tower of Conviction Torture Chamber. Number 13, Griffith's Torture. Number 12, Donovan. Number 11, The Burning Children. Number 10, The Man-Made Behelit. Number 9, The Incarnation Ceremony. Number 8, The Horse. Number 7, Bowels of the Holy Ground. Number 6, Clippeth or Troll Den. Number 5, Wyald. Number 4, 2016 and 2017 anime. You don't have to take this one too seriously. Number 3, Adult Attack. Number 2, The Eclipse. Number 1, The King and Charlotte. I would like to hear your thoughts on my list. Where do you think I'm wrong and stuff? Feel free to share your opinion. And what's a moment that truly disturbed you in the series? I hope this video gave you something. Thank you for watching.